Hello, my name is Robert Morgan and I am the director of Stop Motion. Stop Motion is about a young stop motion animator who, in the course of the film, discovers her creative voice and finds out that her creative voice is actually dangerous and malevolent. I first had the idea for this story quite a few years ago now, and it came out of maybe two things. One was I thought I'd never seen a film about a stop motion animator before, and I thought that would be a really interesting subject for a film. And secondly, I'd had my own experience with making a short film where I had the sensation that the characters in the film, the puppets in the film, almost took on a life of their own, and they started almost telling me what they wanted to do outside of my own influence. And that sensation, it's like a kind of uncanny sensation of your own creation coming to life without your control. That was kind of, those two things were the starting point for the film. So the main character in stop motion is Ella Blake, who's played by Aisling Franciosi. Ella is a young artist who, when we first meet her, is living with her mother, who is also a stop motion animator, and her own creative voice has kind of been suppressed by the tyrannical mother in her life. And through the course of the film, Ella escapes from that shadow and finds her own voice. Ella is somebody who has a very obsessive relationship with art, particularly with stop motion animation. She has an almost religious devotion to it, and that through the film drives her into some very extreme situations. I think I couldn't make a film like this if I did not relate to Ella as a character. I very much relate to her. I feel she's very much an extension of how I feel about my own art, about creativity in general. And although I maybe wouldn't go quite to the extremes that she goes to in the film, I feel very close to her and I relate to her a lot. Robin King, who co-wrote the script with me, I asked him to come on board very early on. I just had the initial idea and just a few of the elements, and discussing it with Robin one day, he started talking about it in a way that was really exciting, and I just said, why don't you just come on board and write it with me? He was like, yeah, cool. So that's what we did, and then, years later we had a script, but we spent a very long time discussing the story. We discussed every single aspect of the story very, very, very carefully before we ended up on the finished scenes. I mean, every line of dialogue was discussed at great length, and we did many drafts of the script to get it to the point where it was working, because it's quite a dense, complex script. There's a lot of elements in it, a lot of different layers of reality, a lot of different worlds within it, and it's all linked together by Ella's experience and Aisling's performance. I think working with really talented actors is there's something very, very magical about it, because when you see actors bringing your scene to life that you wrote months or years before, and hearing the words come out of their mouth and feeling that it feels real and feels convincing and credible, that's very, very exciting. It gives you a lot of confidence as a filmmaker when you see that, looking at the actors on set and seeing them interact with each other and seeing it come alive. It's very exciting. And I think working with actors I found it very easy. I mean, I come from a stop motion animation background, so I think people might assume that I'm going to be very controlling about it, but that's not the case at all. Because when you have really good people, I mean, it's across the board with all of the crew as well, you choose your people very carefully, the people you work with, and then you tune them into the film, and I think you have to give them a lot of freedom. The great thing about actors is I don't have to animate them, they do it, they just do it. I think Aisling's performance in this film is just absolutely phenomenal. I think she's a brilliant actor. I think as soon as I first spoke to her about the role, I knew just by the way she was talking about it. I mean, I'd seen her previous work, so I knew she was like a great actor, but when we first met and we were speaking about the character, just the way she was speaking about it, how she totally got it from the beginning. So I knew straight away she was going to be perfect for it. And then once we started shooting, when I'm watching the monitor and seeing what she's doing. It's just like she was just always in the zone with it and delivering. And what I like about Aisling's acting in general is you can see the thinking. You can see in all of her roles, you can see the character thinking. She's not just waiting to say her next line, she's thinking all the way through the scenes. And you can just watch her not doing anything and you can see the cogs turning. You know, she's really deeply in the character. And that's what I needed for this film, you know, a thinking, watching a character on screen and you can see them thinking, you can see the internal cogs turning. I think Aisling's great at that. I think the pace of doing a live action shoot as opposed to an animation shoot, I would say it's neither. I mean, there are difficulties, there are new difficulties. There are things that are harder in live action, and there are things that are harder in stop motion, and there are things that are easier in both as well. The one thing that you become very aware of on a live action shoot is just the relentlessness of the schedule. And every day, you've just got to get this many scenes done in a day, and you've got to make that day every single day. And that's the same with animation as well. But when I've done animation in the past, I tend to do things on my own time with very little money. So working to a schedule, definitely a challenge. But then at the same time, there's a certain pace that you get into, and there's an energy that you get into, and I think that energy can really help a scene. You know, you can't overthink things. You just shoot all the time. So making that day all the time is a challenge, but at the same time, I think it can help the film, actually. The next time I make a film, if I'm lucky enough to make another feature film, the thing I would do differently is I think I would be more wary of writing a script that is so dense and complex. And because we ended up, during the edit, we ended up simplifying the story somewhat anyway. So I think if I was to do things differently, I would probably do a new draft of the script based on the schedule and simplify things. Because I was doing that anyway on the day. Every day I'd get in and I would look at the scenes that we had to shoot against the schedule, and I would have to simplify the scenes and make sure those things, I was getting the beats of the story and all the important elements, but having to jettison some of the things that we wouldn't have time to do. Having gone through that and knowing that now, I think next time round I would be more wary of simplifying things even further before shooting.
狂気に満ちた人形が動き出す。映画監督を目指すエラ。
We need to do it again.
そこに現れた謎の少女。
It's called stop motion animation.
I know a better story. The Ashman comes in 3 nights. She tries to hide, but on the first night, he sees her.
It's not real.
Stop motion アニメと現実が融合した新たなる恐怖。
What happens on the third night?
Stop motion